very early in my career that I learned to solder. Now, the first solder joint I ever made, the guy that was teaching me, he said, we need to put this sweat adapter on here so we can change from copper to PEX. So I'd seen sweat done a couple of times. So he says, I'm going to be upstairs working in that bathroom. You put that sweat adapter on, come get me. Okay. And I tried. And then I went upstairs and I said, Brandon, I cannot get that solder to suck in. I don't know what the problem is. He said, are you getting it hot enough? I said, well, it's red. It was a little bit hot.
Tradesmen built America. Not policymakers or desk jockeys, but hardworking, blue-collared men and women. Join me, Roger Wakefield, on conversations with some of the nation's most successful skilled laborers. This is the Trade Talks. Why did you pick plumbing?
I think I kind of just fell into it. I was desperate for a job. You want the long version? So I can go back to when I was 12. Video store had closed down and the plumber had moved into the building. We were driving by and Mom said, you should think about being a plumber one day when you're. Fast forward to, I got fired from a job at the hospital. I was desperate for a job. So I applied for plumbing positions because I thought about when my mom had told me about that. And I applied at probably 8 different shops. One of them called me back that day, said, you want an interview tomorrow? Yes, please. At the end of the interview, they said, you want to start Monday? Yes, please. And after a week, I decided this is the career. This is what I want to do. That was about 11 years ago, still going strong.
So your first job, you knew plumbing because of what you learned when you were younger. What do you remember about the interview process? How was it 10, 11 years ago to go out and apply for a job knowing you knew nothing about the industry?
So I walked in, said, are you guys taking apprenticeships? They said, yeah. And I got the application. Like I said, they called me back for the interview the next day. And it was a pretty laid back interview. The only 2 things I remember specifically were they asked if I had how was my driving record? I said, well, I got a couple of speeding tickets, but I'll get to the job quick with those. And they laughed. They said, what's your experience? I've used a plunger a couple of times. They said, that's great. And it seemed like the less coming into it, that's what they wanted. Because then that's you're a ball of clay that they can mold into what they want and what works for them. It seems like after you've done it for a while and you go somewhere else, it can be a little bit more difficult because you've been molded, shaped one way. Somebody else might have something else in store, but it's nice to learn different ways of doing things.
Did you start out in service or new construction?
Mostly service. So where I am, it's a small area. You have to be able to do service. You have to be able to do new, and you have to be able to do commercial because there's not enough people at one shop you're just the new construction guy. You're just the service guy. You can do mostly something, but you're going to get pulled around and do different things. So mostly I started out doing service. And then we had some new builds go up and I got to do underground and then top out. And always going into different commercial places, which for me has just been a lot like service work, just in a business building.
Most of the new construction was residential then?
Yeah, still residential buildings. I don't think I have personally done any new commercial buildings.
I got to work on a huge hospital here in Dallas, probably the largest county hospital in the world. It's phenomenal. And to be on a job that big is, we all remember where we started. I was on a small commercial remodel. It was a Wells Fargo bank where they were adding on to it. So I got to see a little bit of new construction, service, you're tracing lines. So it's really neat. You get to do a little bit of all of it. Do you ever wish you'd have got into, big commercial or to the union or gone in a different way, or did the way you get in work well for you?
What I wish could have been different would have been probably a trade school. What made it difficult for me was the way this company was set up. You're not hourly, and there's a conversation to be had for commission and hourly. I think there's good and bad both ways, but not being hourly, guys that are teaching me didn't really feel incentivized to slow down and take their time and show me things. So if you want to know, you've got to pay close attention and ask questions and listen, because he's not stopping to show you. He's going to keep working and while he's explaining. So you've really got to be on the ball. I think if it had been an hourly thing, then somebody's going to slow down and talk to you and work through, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it. So a trade school might have been really nice to come into that, learn while I'm there, and then go out into the field, and I've got this knowledge, and it's going to help me along the way. With the training that I had, I really feel like it made the next 2 years of my career a little bit difficult, because I come into another shop and I don't feel like my knowledge was where it needed to be for as long as I'd been doing it. I think a trade school might have really helped with that, but there's not any near where I am.
So you started out commission. How did that work? How was the split? How did they figure out how much to pay you compared to the plumber you worked with?
They said that your commission, that payout, is based on $100 an hour. So we estimate that this job will take this long. And so that's how they broke it down, how much they pay you for that task. When you're brand new, they still pay you hourly, and your hourly wage would come out of that commission guy's pay. He was paying you essentially. So there was a few jobs, the big jobs, that I felt like, this guy really likes having me work with him. I must be doing a really good job. It's not the case. I was just the cheapest. So it made sense for him to take me, because he would get to make more of his money. So after a few months, I went to the boss and said, hey, I think I'm ready to get bumped up onto that commission. He said, okay, if you think you're ready. I may not have quite been ready. There were some really good paychecks with that, and there were some really poor paychecks with that. Sometimes the work just wasn't there, and if you're not working, you're not getting paid.
It's a good way to look at it. So what do you think you prefer, hourly or commission? And think about when you were starting out and then currently.
With the knowledge and skill that I've got now, if I can be busy all day, I think I would probably choose commission. You're going to fluctuate your pay, but you can get some really good pay. The nice thing about being hourly is you know how long you've worked. You've got a really good idea what your paycheck's going to be, and that makes it easier to budget. It's easier to spend money when you've got a lot of it, though.
I've seen a lot of plumbers, which I've worked at both top companies and been in management at both top companies. And you see sometimes hourly people are like, hey, this is kind of all the work we got going today. Let's make sure this lasts all day long. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? This should have been a 2-hour job. All of a sudden that 2-hour job's an 8-hour job. And it's like, that's, to me, is one of the bad things about hourly.
Right.
One of the bad things about commission, on the other hand, you got this plumber that's like, hey, they really don't need a new water heater, but let's go ahead and push it real hard and sell them one. So I see pros and cons to both. Do you feel the same way being out in the field?
I feel the same way with that. It's definitely a problem with people milking the clock when they're on hourly. When I was on commission, one of the things that I really liked for the customer, it doesn't matter how long this is going to take me, because they are paying what they're paying. The average water heater takes 3 hours to change. My personal best is 45 minutes. My longest is 6 hours. It didn't matter to the customer, other than they've got the plumber in their house for 6 hours and kind of want to get him out of here, but it didn't affect their bill. So there's a lot less stress to try and be quick for the customer when you're on commission. When you're on hourly, you want to be quick, and you always want to be quick and efficient, but there's a balance. You go too fast, you're going to make mistakes. You don't go fast enough, and you're costing people money, your boss and the customer. The other thing with commission, like you said, they don't really need a water heater, but maybe we can get them one. And I've seen a few guys, not many, I've seen some that they would really push that stuff. And it's a shame. I feel like if you're not going to, you wouldn't sell that to your grandma. I think that's the same thing you say. I'm not going to sell it to my grandma.
To your mother and your grandmother, absolutely.
Yeah. When I was on commission, one of the things that they drove home to you, treat every job like it's your only job. And I didn't look ahead in the schedule. I didn't know how many other calls that I had that day.
Right.
That job that I'm on, that's the important one. I need to get this one taken care of, and then later I can go on to the next one. And sometimes you show up a little bit late, but you're going to treat that customer the same way. This is my only job, the only one that's important, and I'm going to be here until it's done.
I like that. I've always heard it, make your first job your last job. Make this job last all day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you go in and do your job right, and I want to get back to pay in a minute, because hourly commission, but also like performance based. That way, you know, if you beat your times, if you make your times, different things like that. Because every job, like you said, water heaters booked at 3 hours. This is how long it takes. Well, if you do 3 of those in a day and you get all of them done in 8 hours, you're 100% efficient. You booked, you charge for all your hours. So I want to talk about that just a little bit. But first of all, tell everybody who you are, what you do, where you're located, where you work, stuff like that.
My name's Shawn Strong. I go by Blue Collar Boom on social media, except for your subreddit where they don't let you change your name. That's still Boom the Plumber.
And that's Boom _ the Plumber.
Boom _ the Plumber, 1_ not 2. Blue Collar Boom is just all run together. I'm from Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and I primarily do residential plumbing.
And my biggest problem was with inviting you here today. You're a Sooner fan. So have you worked for or heard of performance-based pay where it's commission, but there's performance-based too that can affect your percentage rates?
I haven't heard of performance-based.
Okay.
All that they've done up there is commission. That was one of the things that the veteran guys really didn't like when a new guy would come in. He's been doing it for 3 months. We're going to go do the same task, and we're going to get paid the same. My counter to that, whenever one of the older guys was venting, I told him, yeah, but you can get that job done in half the time, and then you can go on to something else, and you're going to get paid for that too. I'm still going to be on this first one making that pay. So the longer you've done it, the better you are, the more efficient you can be.
And I've heard of apprentices. So, you know, if you're thinking about getting in the trades right now, listen to some things here, because I know apprentices that did really, really well and worked hard and learned fast, and they could go out to a job and probably do half the work a plumber could. So plumbers would be like, hey, I want you to ride with me today. I'll pay you an extra $100, because they know their production is going to be so much better. They're going to make way more than that back. And it's nice because now instead of $1,000 a day, you can have a $2,000 a day, and it costs you an extra $100 to do that. What did you learn as an apprentice that wanted to make you become a really good plumber?
I didn't realize how much I liked working with my hands. So I grew up on a farm, and I did not enjoy that work. If you wanted to find me, you'd find me in front of the computer. When I turned 18, I moved up to Nebraska. I'm going to age myself. I worked at Blockbuster, and I worked at Walmart, and I worked at the hospital. And the hospital's where I got fired from. But being on the sales floor, being in a cubicle, all that, I thought that was kind of where I was heading towards. I wanted to be in front of a computer. And then it's my job, got desperate, and that's when I started plumbing. And like I said, after a week, decided that's what I wanted to do. And I loved the problem solving, and I loved the building. So my first day, I remember the guy who was teaching me, I couldn't see much of what he was doing because he had his head stuck underneath the tub, rebuild and drain. But he was having me go out and cut pieces of pipe and grab fittings for him and whatnot. And I'm trying in my imagination to figure out what he's doing and how it's working. And I remember going home and I was really excited. Yeah, he had me cut this piece, and he put this together, and he did that. And I think this is what he was doing. And I was just kind of hooked, and it was the building. And sometimes you just stand back and look at something and think, I put that together.
I think pride in the trades is what separates it from any other career, profession, you know, any of it. So many tradespeople I talk to, when you start talking about pride and driving down the road, and I mean, me and you could drive around Dallas, and for hours I could just point out buildings. Yeah, I worked on that. I worked on that. I worked on that. And that's the way tradespeople are. You know, I say blue collar workers are the original thought leaders. And I say that because, I mean, no matter where you look around, you can walk outside anywhere in the world and look around you. Everything you see was built by tradespeople. Everything. A bunch of doctors didn't get together and build the hospital themselves.
Right.
it's tradespeople. And I think more people should get into the trades, that we need more people in the trades. How is it in Nebraska? Do y'all have all the people you need, or could y'all hire 10 more plumbers next week?
We could always use more people. Bad thing is you got people that come in that can't hack it, or they decide that's not for them. So the more people we got coming in, the better, because we're going to raise that percentage of people that are good and are going to stick with it.
So what kind of things would you tell somebody if you had 3 people that talk to you about wanting to get into the trade, and you're like, look, I don't have time to weed y'all out. I don't have time for the 2 of y'all that are going to quit. What questions would you ask, or what things would you tell them to make them think either, hey, this is for me, or, you know what, maybe that's not for me?
I would first ask how you feel about getting dirty. Whenever I get under a house, it doesn't bother me getting down under the house, being in the dirt, because I think I'm getting paid to play in the dirt.
Some of us enjoy it.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's nice. The other thing I would ask about is their temperament. How are you under pressure? And probably third, how are you with people? Because even in commercial, certainly with residential, you've got to deal with customers. And if you can't handle people, it's probably not for you. That's something you can work on, but it's a lot easier to train somebody to do plumbing than it is to raise people skills.
Yeah, training people to be nice to people sometimes is hard.
And the older you get, the harder it becomes.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, what did you think you'd be?
When I was little, I was thinking about being a cop. I had a friend, and that was the goal. That was the dream. We were going to go to the police academy, and that's what we were going to do. Never came close to it. And then after growing up, I was going to be a youth minister. That's why I moved up to Scottsbluff, was to go to the Bible college. And I found out that you don't get good grades if you don't study. And so that was kind of just throwing money down a hole. And then I thought, I'm going to get into graphic design. I've always liked, like I said, being in front of a computer, and I like making things, and I like drawing. I'm not the best artist. I might not even be a good artist, but I really like graphic design, and I really like marketing. So that's kind of where I was headed. That's what I wanted to do. So I'm doing these other jobs thinking I will do this until I can get into art school or something and learn those skills. But after I started plumbing, I still like marketing. I still like making stuff, but it's not the same as having a physical drain system that you put together, or a water manifold system, and looking back and thinking that looks sharp. Everything is straight. Everything is spaced apart evenly, and it looks good. It's far more satisfying.
Did you realize, and let me ask this as a plumber now, do y'all have iPads, computers, stuff like that with you in your vans or anything?
It's Nebraska, Roger. We just got indoor plumbing.
Yeah, recently.
There's a few companies running around with iPads, but not many. A lot of them are still pen and paper. And one of the companies that I was with, I was one of the first ones to get the iPad and test out that system. It was nice. Like I said, I don't tend to look forward in my schedule. I like to focus on the job that I'm on. With the app they had, you couldn't look forward. You couldn't see the next call until that one is booked out and done.
And what app was that?
I don't remember the name of it.
Okay.
Oh, that's the other thing, is the nice thing about that sort of system. I've got some paperwork that I didn't do on Friday that I'm going to have to do before Monday. You don't have that problem with the app.
Yeah, do it now.
Yeah, it's all done. You don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think, oh gosh, I still got to do that. It's all booked out and done. Then you move on to the next call. And then you're billing the appropriate time for that job too. There's a lot of nice things about the app, and I just love that the technology we're finally catching up with it.
Did you work for some really good plumbers that taught you how to do things in a great way?
I've worked for some really good plumbers, and I've worked with some lackluster plumbers. There's a lot of problems with apprentices training apprentices. And I was one of those apprentices at one time. I'd been doing it for a few years. I had my own apprentice as an apprentice. One of them, he likes to introduce me to people and say, this is the guy that taught me everything I know. I say, yeah, it took me all day.
Yeah.
But there are some guys that it's not just their skill doesn't strictly mean that you're a good plumber. A good plumber should also be a good teacher. And those guys who didn't want to slow down and didn't want to explain and didn't want to teach, that was rough for a guy who was new and really did want to be good at it. And I think that the desire to be good at it was just more about the enjoyment. And there's a lot of satisfaction that I get from helping somebody solve a problem. Either one that Miss Betty doesn't know how to fix on her own, or old Farmer John just doesn't have the time, or his back doesn't let him do whatever. He can see the problem and he knows what to do about it. He just can't fix it. It's really nice to come in and help those people, and for them to show you some gratitude of any kind. It just really, really makes the job worth it.
The first plumber I worked with would not, we were working on a bank. When we got prints or new prints or whatever it was, whatever floor we were working on, he'd roll the prints out and he'd stand there and look at them, and I could not even get next to him. He did not want me to stand next to him. So I had to stand on the other side of the sheetrock, because, if there's sheetrock already on the floors, that's our table. And I remember I'm learning to read blueprints upside down, because I'm looking at where his fingers are pointing. I'm looking at where he's looking. I'm trying to figure out what we just ran, where we're at, what columns are. And I literally learned to read blueprints upside down. But him not wanting me to learn it, not wanting me to see it, made me want to learn it more. And I remember they'd bring up new prints and say, hey, here's the updated version that, there's things that have changed, yada, yada, yada. They'd go to throw the other ones away. I'd take them out, take them home, open them up and read the front page, read the legend. That's where I learned about structural and architectural and all this other stuff that's in the prints, and how you've got to tie it together and to learn everything you need to learn. And then started looking at the other trades. Well, hey, we're putting this in here. Wow, if you overlay, which you can't do on blueprints, but you take what's in this area on the electrical drawing and think about it while you're looking at this. Hey, there's an elevation here that we can't go up all the way. So learning to read prints to me was huge. And later in the union, I taught blueprint reading. So that was pretty cool. But I always, number one, I've worked with some of the most amazing plumbers that, taught me true plumbing square on everything you do. It doesn't matter if nobody ever comes back and sees it, put it in perfect. And luckily, that's the one that I learned so much from, that I'm like, I always want to put it in this way. But I've also worked with some plumbers that even before I knew right from wrong, it's like, oh yeah, that's wrong. And you just knew it. Learning to be the best plumber, you make more money, you get better opportunities, you do things like that. Do you still learn how to get better? Do you still learn new things, or how have you grown after you've become a plumber?
I like to talk about soldering, because it's very early in my career that I learned to solder. Now, the first solder joint I ever made, the guy that was teaching me, he said, we need to put this sweat adapter on here so we can change from copper to PEX. So I'd seen sweat done a couple of times. So he says, I'm going to be upstairs working in that bathroom. You put that sweat adapter on, come get me. Okay. And I tried. And then I went upstairs and I said, Brandon, I cannot get that solder to suck in. I don't know what the problem is. He said, are you getting it hot enough? I said, well, it's red. It was a little bit hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think about my soldering. I learned how to solder very early in my career. It's kind of important for what we do. I'd been plumbing for about 5 years before I learned to make it look good. And nobody in town was teaching me, how do you clean up your joints? How do you make it look nice?
Mm-hmm.
You wipe off your flux. You wipe off your solder after you're done. Nobody was teaching me that. I had to get online, and I went to YouTube and I went to Instagram, and that's where I learned to make some of my things look good.
Yeah, I think that's so cool, because when I go to conferences now, I get people that come up and say, look, I got into the trade because of watching your videos, or I learned to do things the right way from watching your videos. And man, it's such a good feeling to know, look, I do things right, and I always try to do things right. But I didn't learn until I got in the union that you can continually educate yourself. I got all the Texas endorsements. When I got in the union, I took med gas, because you could go to work for companies and make more if you had a med gas license, because they were doing hospitals. And I always wanted to make more money. I always worked harder to try to be one of the best so I could make more money. And that was one of the big deals that I did whenever I got into the union. Because when you first get in the union, you're a rat. They don't like you. You're uneducated. You know nothing about plumbing. So when you're looking at things to learn or things to practice to get better at, what do you think you can do to set yourself apart from the other apprentices, the other plumbers, the other people at your company to help put you in a better position where you can get better job opportunities, better offers, or make more money?
I'd say study the book, and figure out what code says you can and can't do. You can't think outside the box until you learn what the box is. You can't bend the rules until you know what the rules are. But if they want to make more money, the more valuable you are, the more knowledge you have, the more skill you have, the more you can make, because you're worth it. I've talked to a few apprentices that, I'm not making any money. They're not sending me to do this work. They've got that guy going to do it, but I'm digging holes. It's because that's what you can do right now. Mm-hmm. So I told them specifically, digging holes. If the boss sends you to dig a hole, you dig the best hole that he's ever seen. So there was a few jobs where I got sent to help burst sewer pipe. You got to dig a hole to do that. So before anybody said anything, I grabbed the shovel and I'm down in the hole and I'm moving dirt. And there was a couple of times the guys would be like, man, that guy digs good. I said, that's the only thing I know how to do. So I'm going to do it the best that I can. And then you get other skills and knowledge and you do those the best that you can. And that makes you more valuable. That makes people want to work with you more. And it makes the boss think, I should pay this guy more because he's worth it.
I love that. People, you hear them a lot. Well, you know what? If you'll pay me more money, I'll do more. I'll do more work. Like, yes, if you can do more work, why aren't you doing it for what I'm paying you now?
It's backwards.
Yeah. It's like you start doing more work and I can see, man, look, I make money off you. I want to make more money off you. I'm going to give you more opportunity. I'm going to give you more training. I'm going to give you, man, whatever it takes to help you grow. Because the more you grow, the more I grow. Mm. And yeah, a lot of people don't see that. A lot of people are like, well, when y'all start paying me more money, I'll start doing more work. It's like, you can leave now.
Yeah. You got to incentivize me. You got to make me want to work more.
Yes.
No, you got to make me want to pay you more. Because if I can pay you less to go out and do stuff, why should I pay you more? Show me that you're worth it.
Over deliver. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Over deliver every day and you're going to be fine.
I like to under promise too.
Yeah.
It makes that over delivery just that much easier to get.
Mm-hmm. So to you, what was the reason to want to go above and beyond? What was your reason to want to over deliver?
In residential, it's worth it for the customer. They might not care so much about how something looks, but whenever they see that you take pride in what you're doing, that makes them take pride in what, you're doing a water heater or you're doing a water softener. They've got to see it every day. If it's, sitting in the laundry room or whatever with them and all the pipe is exposed, and they got to look at it, and maybe they don't really care. Maybe you've got crooked pipes and whatnot running and it doesn't bother them. But I think a lot of people, they take pride in their home. I care about my home. Why shouldn't I care about their home? Because they've got to live in it too. So you run your pipes nice and straight. You support everything so it's not sagging. You make it look good. And then when they look at it, they think he did a really good job. And the next time I need something, I am going to call them. I got a buddy who sent me a picture just yesterday. They ran a water line out to an RV for his dad. So they come off of the main, and in the middle of the wall, they ran their pipe and it had to be exposed. And then they drilled through the door jamb and then they sent it outside. I said, well, if I was going to do it and it has to be exposed, I would have run it up to the corner of the ceiling and hit it a little bit. The next thing he says to me is, that's a drop ceiling. They could have run it up into the ceiling and they just didn't care.
So who were your big influencers as you were growing and learning? I mean, you grew up during social media. Mm-hmm. You had Google and YouTube.
Grew up with
you
the
could
internet.
Search stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody in here the other day, and it's like if we wanted to learn something, we had to go to the library and get a book.
Mm-hmm. And
not many people were like, "Yeah, I'm going to go get a book to learn plumbing." It's like I'm on a job every day. I'm learning.
Sure.
What influenced you? What helped you learn new things, or what coaches or mentors, or what did you have that really helped you understand plumbing?
I never really had much for mentors. now that I've been in it for a while and I've made different connections, just even in town with guys that work at different companies or guys that I have worked with and then they left or I left, I've got a lot of people that I can call and I can get ideas or I can get advice. I can ask questions to. We're not really mentoring each other, but we are helping build each other. Mentor isn't really anything that I really ever had. There's a few things that being raised, I saw my dad do or saw my dad say that have stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is, attitude of if you're going to do something, do it right. He said, anything worth doing is worth doing well.
You bet.
I agree. So that's one of the things that that stuck with me. But I've got a lot of people that I can call and just ask questions to or bounce advice off of. And every once in a while, somebody will call me too. And then we've got the internet. I found out that there's a lot of people online that share their work. So I've got a lot of connections in different parts of the country that I can throw out an idea to, or I can ask a question to. It's been really, really cool. I've made so many good friendships with people I've never met.
Where all are you on social media? What all platforms are you on?
I'm primarily on Instagram. I have a Twitter account. It doesn't get used. I have my personal name on Facebook. What else is there? There's TikTok. I'm on TikTok. Every once in a while, I'll get onto the latest dance trend and shake my booty.
I can see you doing that. It's a thought I want to get rid of pretty quick.
But I'm on the popular ones, and I don't know if I told you this, but it was probably 2 years ago. I heard you say TikTok's going to be the next big thing, and I made my account later that day. And for a little while, not very long, but for a little while, I had more TikTok followers than you.
It's a good thing. And when I started doing, and I probably started TikTok at about the same time. My big thing has always been YouTube. That's what I learned to do 5 years ago. And we jumped in and got really, really serious about it. And I think that the reason social media became such a big deal to me is I was trying to make my phone ring at my plumbing company. And I got tired of marketing companies ripping me off. I got tired of marketing companies. If I talked to them about social media, you could tell by their answers, they knew nothing about social media. They were just, make posts about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that just doesn't sound right to me. So I've, of course, like I said, focused on YouTube growing because YouTube is a search engine. And learning all these different things to help me grow, to help me do well has been great. And, we started growing to grow a plumbing company. Then along the way, we realized there were more plumbers watching us than customers that would call a plumbing company. So we kind of pivoted our content a little bit. And then we started realizing it's all the trades. It's other trades, plumbers, electricians, HVAC techs, roofers, window cleaners, pest control people, you name it. They're commenting. So we changed from the expert plumber to Roger Wakefield because Google Analytics said this is what people are searching to find you. What has been your philosophy on social media? Because you're not trying to grow a plumbing company,
right?
Where you're trying to feed families. You're growing a brand. You're growing your message. What was your purpose for starting social media? And now what's your purpose for growing it?
When I started my Instagram page, I was kind of in a place where I think someday I might want to open up my own shop. So I'm going to start an account now. And it had a different name, and I'm going to start building that. That way I've got something established, an identity essentially. And it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't doing anything. I was kind of doing all the same stuff then that I am now, but I was talking to a friend, and I think I need to change this up to something less of a brand, less of a company, if you will, and more of an individual. And that way I can start connecting with people. And we started kicking around ideas. And I don't know if you've ever personally done this. I do it all the time, and this is why I chose the name. But if you ever build anything and you think it looks real good, or you overcome some sort of obstacle, just boom. I did that. And that's where boom came from. So it started out boom the plumber, boom _ the plumber. But I have changed it to blue collar boom because, like you, I want to appeal to more of trades. So what I've been doing the last few years is just making connections with people, following different trade stuff. Cause I'm like you, I really want more people in the trades. Do we need doctors? Absolutely. Do we need lawyers? Arguably. Do we need people to build houses? Do we need sanitary plumbing? Do we need electricity? Do we need heat and air? Certainly. We wouldn't be where we are as a society without tradespeople. We save more lives a year than doctors. And any of the HVAC guys can fight me on that.
Or electricians. So how'd you learn to do social media?
Like I said, grew up with the internet. So a lot of my time growing up and in high school and junior high was just surfing the web, as we used to say, finding different websites to visit. Chat rooms were really big at the time. And then MySpace became a thing. And so that was my first social media experience, but it was all just people living in the dorms or people that I'd gone to high school with, becoming friends again on MySpace. And then Facebook took over the world. That got big. And then they bought Instagram. And when Instagram was new, it was just, here's my pictures and look at my pictures of my food and whatnot. And I wasn't really into it. And then a couple of years ago, made my account. This is where I'm going to start showing my work, the stuff that I'm proud of. And I put stuff up there that I'm not proud of too. And I remember one time I had a callback on a lavatory. I didn't tighten a hose or something enough, and it leaked and it bubbled up the bottom of the cabinet. And I posted that on there and made a little caption about why do I show my callbacks too? It's because I'm human and it keeps me humble. I'm not perfect, but it being the social media world, people only see what we want them to see. And I would rather retain a little bit of integrity and show that I don't do everything right, but I want to get better. And that's the nice thing about social media is that the community we have, we can build off of each other. I don't post stuff on Facebook anymore because it's all tear down, but I'll put it on Instagram because you get a lot of positive feedback. And even if somebody has a criticism, they usually handle it in a pretty civil manner.
There is a lot of negativity out there. And I'm like you, when we're back there and we make mistakes, it normally ends up on YouTube. Don't know how that happens.
You always got a camera on you.
I know it's tough, but we're not perfect. We all make mistakes. Each and every one of us started out knowing nothing. You were talking about soldering earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was really starting out in the trades, it wasn't on the bank job anymore because I pretty much didn't get to do a lot there. But I started building condos up and down I-30. And I remember I'd got a job one day and they came out and asked what all tools I had and made a list. Said, hey, we're going to go ahead and buy all these tools for you. It'll be a payroll deduct. They'll take out, $20 a week till it's taken care of or whatever. So, okay, that sounds great. Well, one of them was a torch. Next day, all the tools come in. They hand me a torch and say, hey, we're going to put you over here soldering together these tub and shower valves. It's okay. You know how to do that? And I'm kind of like you. I'd never really done it, but I'd seen it done. I'm like, absolutely. And I soldered about 50 of these things, and somebody carried some upstairs for them to start installing it. One of the foremen comes down with it in his hand, or with a few of them in his hand. He's like, hey, we got to talk about this. Okay, what do you want to talk about? And he showed me these cold solder joints, different things. And I'm like, okay. He said, have you soldered before? I said, maybe once or twice, because I'm sure a plumber would let me.
I just
solder
did 50.
Something while they're white. Yeah. Just did a shit ton of them a while ago. So he showed me how to take those apart, how to clean them up, put them back together, and solder them the right way. And he actually demonstrated on 2 or 3 of them. Then he handed the torch to me and said, okay, now you do it. And I did 2 or 3 of them. He said, okay, go ahead. And God, I think I ended up doing 100 tub and shower valves. And I don't know that any of them leaked, but somebody took the time to slow down and show me how. And I love that about social media because I have people come up to me and say, look, I started watching you 5 years ago and I'm a plumber now. And I would have never thought about becoming a plumber. I watch you when I learned to do things the right way. I watch you because the plumber that I work for does things completely different than I think is right. Isn't it cool to be on social media and have somebody come up to you and say, man, I like the way you do this? Or do you get recognized out in public?
Not where I am. Too small of an area. The only people that recognize me are people that I know.
It's interesting. It really is. It's crazy. I just got back from Florida and walking into a restaurant there, and like a waiter or a bartender, somebody's like, I know you. But it's neat because they always have a message about how I help them do something. And to me, that's the coolest thing about social media is you're helping people.
Yeah. When I came down last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't tend to vacation very often. So a lot of the guys that I was working with, really excited for you to get to go down to Texas and see Roger. Well, we had just hired a guy, and he said, you're going to go see Roger. Like, yeah, Roger Wakefield. No kidding. When I took my journeyman test, I watched all of his videos, and it helped me pass my test. And then not too long ago, I had another apprentice at this other shop, and we were talking plumbing and learning stuff. And he's like, well, there's this guy that I watch these videos. I don't know if you know who you probably know who he is. And I didn't even let him finish. And I just took out my phone and I scrolled through my contacts. This the guy? I said, yeah, that's the guy. So yeah, I can imagine it's different having people recognize you.
It's really funny because I called a friend of mine who's up in Washington, up near Seattle. And I called him one morning and he answers the phone. He's in his truck, you can tell, and he's laughing. He says, Roger, how are you? I said, I'm doing good. How are you doing? I said, what are you laughing about? He said, I've got this new apprentice in here. Says, Randy, say hello. And this young lady says, hi. I said, okay, so why are you laughing? He says, your name popped up on the screen. And she just got all giddy. She's like, oh my God, this is why I got into plumbing. This guy, right? And she's like, you know him? And he's just laughing.
Yeah.
So it was really, really funny. What do you think the message is that we can give to people through social media to let them know about opportunities in the trades?
The trades aren't going anywhere. We're always going to need people building houses and sanitary plumbing. Like we said, it's never going away. The world is changing. Everything's growing rapidly. Talked about AI. AI is taken over. It's going to affect the job market for better or worse. Someday, you're going to have robots building houses, doing plumbing, doing electrical. Not anytime soon. We're always going to need people doing that stuff. And the best thing about learning the trade, you can go anywhere and do it. I live in Nebraska. I could come down to Texas and I can do it.
No, we don't want you here.
I could go down to Oklahoma.
Oh God. Yeah, you'll fit right in there.
But you adapt to the changes in codes and the way that the jurisdiction enforces different things. But when you know how to do it, you know how to do it. And that's not a skill that anybody takes from you. So the job security is, in my opinion, the best thing about being in a trade. And it's made me a lot more handy doing other stuff. I punched keys on a computer all my life. But I helped a friend do the addition on his house. We're not HVAC guys, but we did the duct work and we hung the furnace. We did the foundation for his slab. You get a lot of confidence. You learn how to do a lot of other things because the skills that you've got with the trade that you do, they will transfer over to other things that you want to do. I'm an amateur woodworker. I don't like the term woodworker. I just like to cut stuff up and put things together. Not something that I ever would have thought I'd enjoy or be able to do when I was 15 or 16. So there's so many benefits. It just makes you see things different.
I talk all the time about tradespeople are so mechanically inclined. Most tradespeople, you can't throw anything in front of them and say, here, tear this apart, put it back together, build this. We might not always fix our own stuff in our homes, but we know how.
The mechanic's car always gets worked on last.
You bet. Do you enjoy that? Can you do pretty much anything you want to?
Maybe not well. I could go out in the middle of the field and with the material, I could build a shack. I could build a house. Is it going to be to code? Probably not, but I can get it put together and it'll stand up and I'd have a roof over my head.
That's all. That's the main thing. Shelter. That's what we build houses for.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back now and change your career, if you could go back and become a police officer, if you could get back on the computer, would you change your career path if you could make the same amount of money doing same top hours, stuff like that? Or do you think the trades are where you're supposed to be?
I'm where I love being. The running gag with one of my closest friends is, if everybody talks about, if we won the lottery, what are you going to go do? And before anybody else can answer, he'll look at me and, Shawn, you don't have to answer. I know you'd keep plumbing. I'd be a multimillionaire, and I probably wouldn't do it as much, but I just love what I do. So I would keep doing what I'm doing. Doesn't matter the pay, doesn't matter the hours. It's what I enjoy, and it's what I'm going to keep doing.
Would you recommend it to your kids?
Yeah. I've got 2 girls, but that doesn't mean they couldn't do it. Maybe they'd have to find different strategies of, because they don't have the upper body strength or the grip strength, but you can work around those things. There's different tools that make it possible. I would recommend it to my kids because I think it's worthwhile. If it's not something that they enjoy, they want to go and be a pop singer or a doctor or a politician, I'm going to support them doing whatever they want to do. If it was something that they showed interest in, absolutely. I think it's worthwhile for virtually anybody.
I've got 2 granddaughters that I cannot even get to think about getting in the trades. One wants to be a nurse, one wants to be a teacher. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, let me help y'all get into other things. Nursing's not bad. I hate anybody to have to go to school and get college debt, take on college debt, which, she could get help. She'd be good. But even the one that wants to be a school teacher is like, you're not going to make money. And, I hate that's where we have teachers. I hate that it's got political as it has.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's part about what I love about getting people into the trades is there is no college debt. You start making money the first day. You're not owing people. If you go to college, chances are you're going to get out owing, I think they said that average is about $160,000, about $40,000 a year for college. So you can get out of college owing $160,000, or you can go work in the trades and over that same 4-year period, make about $200,000. And you turn that around, that's a $360,000 difference where you're starting out. And the person walking out of college has to find an entry-level job.
Mm-hmm.
The person who's been in the trades for 4 years now should be a journeyman. You're on the higher end of it. So I just look back and point it that way. What do you think people should think about if they're thinking about getting into the trades or going to college? What do you see the big difference being?
You had a few jobs growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a couple. I bounced from job to job myself. I don't think it's necessarily fair to ask an 18-year-old, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? That's a really hard question for anybody to answer. So to say you're getting out of high school, now you need to go to college and get the education for your career. And you're going to get a lot of debt doing it. Now, by the time you get out, maybe the thing that you chose to do, there's not a lot of jobs for that. It's not a very big market. You're probably going to have to go do something that you don't want to do, or something that you're overqualified for now that you've got that education. Maybe the trades aren't for you, but you don't know what you want to do. Why don't you get into a trade and get paid well, learn some skill, and then when you're 22 or whatever, and you know yourself better, and you think this is what I want to do, then you move on and start working toward that career. But why just jump into something that you really don't know if that's what you want to do and get all that debt?
Yeah, and that's a good way to look at it. I like that. Get a job in the trades first, make some money, get to where you can at least afford to live on your own if you want to. Mm-hmm. Then if you're like, hey, you know what? I want to be a pharmacist or something.
Yeah.
Now you can afford to pay your way through school. A lot of different deals like that. It's a good way to do it. If you could go back and talk to young Shawn Strong the first day, the morning he's walking out to go to work for that plumbing company, the very first day, Shawn's never been on a job. Shawn's never learned anything about plumbing. Shawn is walking into the trades day one. Knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell young Shawn that first morning?
First thing I'd say is, you're going to love this. This is going to be fun and you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be great. Second of all, there's two things you need to save. You need to start putting money aside and save for retirement, and you need to save your body. It's a hard, labor-intensive job. They all are, all the trades are, and you need to take care of yourself, because the better you take care of yourself, the better or the longer you're going to be able to do it. Start taking care of yourself day one.
Are you taking care of yourself yet?
No.
So listen to yourself now. You can still do it. It's not too late.
It's never too late. But a couple of years ago, I had a New Year's resolution. I'm going to wear my knee pads more. It lasted good for about 4 or 5 months, and I got lazy with it. I want to keep my truck cleaner because then I don't have to climb over all that stuff and fall over and stab myself on pipe. But yeah, you take care of yourself, and I'll make a commitment to you right now, Roger. I'll try and do better.
We'll check back in on that.
All right.
We'll check back in on that. Shawn, thank you for coming down. I appreciate this. This has been good. You know, everybody can find you on most of the social platforms, but what a lot of people don't know is you pretty much run my Discord group. You run my subreddit, and I get in there every now and then, but number one, I don't like Discord. Told you that when you started. It's like, yeah, Discord's not my deal.
That's all right. I got it.
Subreddit I love. I was talking to somebody the other day. They were trying to find something out, and they were in the medical field, and they're like, this machine was alarming, and it's not an alarm or not a machine that you want anybody to have control of. And they're like, I knew I couldn't find the answer on YouTube. I looked. So they ended up finding out how to turn off the alarm and reset this machine and all this on subreddit. Mm-hmm. So, there's good things there. You can sometimes find things there you can't find anywhere else. But again, where can everybody else find you?
So primarily Instagram, Blue Collar Boom. I don't know where anybody could, you can find the link to the Discord on the subreddits. And I see every post that goes on the subreddit. I upvote every single one. That's for me, so I can keep track of what I've seen. I don't comment on all of them. There's so many people on there that have got so much knowledge. It's a great place to get help or just share your stuff. What I love about the Discord is I have gotten help on there too. There's people that know more about certain things than I do, but I love helping people find out where to get answers to their questions or answer them directly. But the Discord is, I don't really think of that one when it comes to social media. That one is a community to me. So I love having people come in and sharing pictures, sharing stories, asking for help, getting help, and just working together. I like to think that the plumbing shops, the plumbing community, what we are, it's not competition, it's community.
Yep.
Work together to make everything better.
That's fantastic. Shawn, thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.